It's all you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Pierre Mitivier, and I work in the fast food industry for over 4 years. I have lived and worked in Brooklyn, and I'm a father of a 4-year-old daughter. I have worked at McDonald's, Wendy's, Popeyes, and now I work in Dunkin' Donuts, where I clean and make the donuts and coffee. I'm so happy to be here with my fast food sisters and brothers, supporters, and the mayor as he signed the Fair Workweek and the Fast Food Workers Empowerment Bill into law. These laws will help. These laws will help make huge improvement in my life and the life of tens of thousands of other fast food workers. I work at Dunkin' Donuts with no set schedule. I get a call from the manager to tell me when to come in. Often it's the same day that he calls me. And sometimes I have to call the store or go in to see if I'm in the schedule. I only get a few days of work a week, so I don't make enough to survive in this city. I rely on food stamp, and I'm currently living in a shelter. My daughter lives with her mom, and it is almost impossible for me to provide any support for her because I'm struggling just to provide for myself. Often I have to choose between basic necessities like giving up my phone bills so I can pay for weekly Metro card because I don't have enough money for both. My unpredictable schedule, I've even made it impossible to get a second job. Just setting up interviews is difficult because sometimes I have to cancel them when I get a call to work at Dunkin' Donuts. It's hard to say no to a last-minute shift when it's the only income I have coming in. Once those laws are in effect, they will improve the lives of everyone working in the industry. The stability of 2-week notice on our schedule and the opportunity to get more hours of work when shifts become available in our stores will make these much better, fairer jobs. We will also be able to form a strong nonprofit organization for fast food workers that help us inform others in our stores about their right on the job and fight for the issues that are important to us in our neighborhoods. Many of us are immigrants, and almost all of us come from communities of color. We will be stronger when we stand together. I want to thank the mayor for standing with us from the beginning. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it was the second or the third strike. He's been on them strike too. I want to thank the city council for passing these bills. I want to thank 32 BJ members and all the unions and community allies who have stood with us first in the fight for 15 and now for fair schedules and for our empowerment bill. It is your solidarity that has helped us win these great victories. I know we will continue to fight, and we will even get better job, dignity, and respect at the workplace. Thank you. That's right.
Good afternoon.
My name is Adriana Hughes, and I am a member of the Retail Action Project, a worker-center initiative of the Retail Wholesale Department Store Union. I'm here today because of the growing retail workforce, which is now 1 in 10 nationally, faces an ever-increasing obstacle, not just with low wages, but also with few benefits, unfair scheduling, and underemployment and daily disrespect. This type of treatment in retail is often justified by the claim that retail is a low-skilled job. Yet our members of RAP would be glad to tell you about the sharpness of our logistics and planning skills that come from having to juggle a full life, raise families without a reliable schedule or paycheck. How skilled we are at making $250 check magically stretch over a week and a half because we don't know what next week's hours may be, or how we manage a fast-paced, physically demanding, multitasking and customized selling of retail industry, smiling in the face of constant rudeness and lack of appreciation. Today's bill signing addresses the most unpredictable of scheduling practices: on-call. Retailers are increasing their demand for open availability and are becoming less accommodating for workers' other commitments. On-call is a practice that makes life so hard for workers and their families, and it finally ends today. No longer will we be subjected to last-minute shifts that require that we hustle in less than 2 hours to make it to work on time. No longer will we be afraid of retaliation for turning down a last-minute offered shift that conflicts with our life commitments, like school or family.
That's right.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for ending this abusive practice that has hurt workers just like me time and time again. Thank you.
Thank you. My dear friends, I am so proud of these two wonderful worker leaders who have spoken so powerfully today. Let's thank Pierre and Adriana for all they have said. Listen to what they said. Listen to what they have lived through trying to make ends meet, trying to provide for themselves and their families, and the challenges created. This is not the way it's supposed to be, is it? This is not what hardworking people are supposed to go through.
That's right.
And I really want to thank them because they're giving voice to what thousands and thousands of people have lived through in this city. And we fancy ourselves an advanced place, a progressive place. But look at what you just heard. People who are treated like workers were 100 years ago, like they were expendable, like all that mattered was the boss's needs and not the workers' lives and families. Well, you're right, Adriana, you're right. This ends today. Thanks to everyone here, and I congratulate everyone. A lot of people should be proud today. And you're going to hear from some of the leaders of this movement, but it's had many, many active members, many organizations, many leaders who fought for this day. And so in addition to folks you're going to hear from, I want to shout out some others. I'm just going to do a little rolling applause here. First of all, I want to thank my own Clergy Advisory Council that played a leading role in getting us to today. Thank you to all the members of the clergy. I want to thank Make the Road, Center for Popular Democracy, Community Service Society, Her. I want to thank our great Consumer Affairs Commissioner, Lorelei Salas, and some of the elected officials who have stood with us the whole way, Assembly members Felix Ortiz and Dick Gottfried, Council members Carlos Menchaca and Danny Drum. So thousands of people are going to gain the stability and the respect they deserve when I sign this legislation later today. And I want to just talk about their lives again for a moment. Look, You know, the notion that people have no say over their own lives, their own schedule, it's abhorrent to think that parents trying to take care of their kids, trying to make sure they have their doctor appointments, trying to make sure everything's okay at their kids' school, or taking care of their own health as working people, or trying to get that second job so they can actually make ends meet, that all of that could be impossible because they get that last-minute call demanding that they appear at their workplace. And the consequences, as you heard, are quite clear. If you don't show up, even though it's supposed to be quote-unquote voluntary, if you don't show up, there could be retaliation. If you don't show up, you could lose the opportunity for more work ahead. If you don't show up, you may be turning down the only additional money you'll see that week. It creates really more than a catch-22. It creates an unlivable life. And it's 2017, the richest city in the richest country in the world. And yet, again, it harkens back many decades. The notion these workers being treated as just like cogs in a machine rather than being given their human dignity. It's unbelievable it came to this, and it's particularly unbelievable it came to this because these are multinational corporations who run these fast food restaurants. They have their franchisees, but they're part of these vast corporations that make a huge amount of money, with CEOs amongst the highest paid in our nation, and yet look at the disdain for working people. Look at the double standard. It could not go on. It's the kind of thing you would like to believe would be handled at the national level. It's the kind of thing you'd like to see our country confront head on, but we have no such illusions right now, and it's time for cities all over the country to take matters into our own hands. Stand up for working people. And it begs that point about how we value people and how we value families. Because if you create a situation that families can't make it, families can't survive, parents can't be there for their children, if you create that kind of situation, it should not be a surprise that families won't make ends meet. Children will end up having less than they deserve. Families won't be healthy. It's not a surprise if you create the preconditions to failure that you then experience failure. This is not a functional reality. It's not an acceptable reality, and we had to do something differently. And I'll tell you something. The situation had gotten so bad that it was literally like watching these companies assume they just controlled every aspect of the workers' lives. You know, we talk in this legislation about not asking one worker to close down a store late at night and then have to be there early in the morning to open it up again. You know why we believe that's so important? Because we think people actually need to sleep if they're going to do a good day's work. You know? We want these workers to be safe on the job. We want the workplace to be healthy, and yet we're asking people to regularly do their job without even a semblance of decent sleep. Why? Because the companies don't have enough money? No, they have plenty of money. Because there's not enough business? Well, we've all been in fast food restaurants lately. There's plenty of business. It's just about whether we're going to respect working people or not. And this legislation makes a very clear statement. In this city, we will respect working people, period. Yes. We'll stand up for working people. I want to add one more point. You know, every time you change the equation in favor of working people, those voices will come out and say it's a danger to the stability of our society and the strength of our economy. You could literally play the same tape over and over. Every time there's been an effort to raise the minimum wage, dire forecasts are heard suggests the economy will collapse. Businesses won't be able to make it. Every time you talk about giving decent working standards and conditions to everyday people, you hear these horrible projections of what is to come. And it's kind of funny because every single time you hear it, all the gloom and doom doesn't come to pass. We've seen it over and over again. Remember with the Fight for 15, which so many people here were strong supporters of. The economy was supposed to ground to a halt. Well, not only here in New York, but all over the country, the Fight for 15 is winning and the economy is doing just fine. Thank you. And remember when so many of us fought together for paid sick leave?
That's right.
And we heard that these small businesses would go out of business in droves. And what have we found, in fact, a few years in? More and more healthy workers, more and more families that can actually take care of themselves, plenty of businesses doing well, and a better, stronger workforce for those businesses. That's what paid sick leave achieved for all of us. And we should be proud of that. So, my friends, don't believe the hype. You're going to hear it again this time, too. You're going to hear all the projections of how fair work week will destroy Western civilization. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. We are convinced this is a step forward for decency. It's a step forward for families living the right way. And we in the city believe in working people. We believe they deserve a chance to have a decent life. And today we make a major step forward for that dream and that goal. And I want to congratulate you all. You fought hard and you won. Just a few words in Spanish. Hoy es un gran día para los trabajadores de la ciudad de Nueva York. Estamos firmando la ley para la semana laboral justa. Ahora, miles de trabajadores en nuestra ciudad tendrán horarios más estables y más seguridad para sus familias. As I said, I want to now call up some of the people who led the way and deserve our great respect and thanks. And the first person I'm going to introduce will then in turn introduce a very, very special guest who we're honored to have here with us in New York City. So now let me bring forward our own New Yorker, president of 32BJ SEIU, Hector Figueroa.
So let me thank first Mayor de Blasio for two things. One, for signing this bill into law and showing incredible leadership. And two, for showing me finally the secret of this podium. I was wondering.
You've gotten even taller to all of us.
There you go. So, muchas gracias. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank the entire New York City Council for having passed this legislation. I want to particularly recognize council members Cody Johnson, Brad Lander, Denick Miller, Julissa Ferraras, for the leadership they exhibit in putting together the Fair Workweek package and the Fast Food Empowerment Bill. They took tremendous steps forward, had enormous courage and vision, and alongside with their peers, the 47-3 who voted for this package of legislation, we thank you all. I also want to recognize our City Council speaker. She's not here at this moment, but she has been every day, every hour, making sure that fast food workers, retail workers, got what they deserve under this legislation. Thank you, Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito. And I also want to recognize our public advocate. I always affectionately say Sister Advocate, Tish James, for also standing with fast food workers and retail workers. So there's a lot of people here to thank, and we are really honored to have two great labor leaders who have fought all their life for what is fair for working people. I'm going to be introducing one of them, but I want to recognize Stuart Applebaum of RWSU. And before I introduce our special guest, let me say a few words. First, what you have seen here are cleaners, doormen, security officers, retail workers coming together to win for fast food workers and to win for all low-wage workers in the city of New York. When we fight, we win. And what this group of workers here today, and every leader here, again, being led by our Mayor Bill de Blasio, understands is that when we win for a group of workers, we can win for all workers. The 5 for 15 started in New York. This is where it was born, out of the courage of fast food workers who took a step of going on strike, and everybody was saying that they were out of their mind demanding 15, and now 22 million workers plus have won wage increases around the country.
Yes.
But the fight is not just for fast food workers or for retail workers, who are, both of them, so integral part of our city's economy. It is for all workers. It is for all low-wage workers. It is for everybody. Because when we leave the floor, everyone can reach the ceiling. This is to lift everyone who works in this city and give an example of what is possible when workers come together around the country. So leading us in this vision of economic justice and empowerment, with the fast food workers, we have broken new ground in the city of New York by winning not only a Fair Work Week, but also winning the vehicle, the path for them to have a stronger voice, to educate themselves, to understand what their rights are. And it is really a privilege and an honor for me to introduce to you the leader in the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico, who has been leading us in this fight for $15 an hour, who have put faith on workers like Chantel, right? Flavia, Jorel, Pierre, Rosa. She has been there relentlessly, devoting our power in SCIU to make sure that these workers win, and along them, every worker can have hope of winning in this economy. So brothers and sisters, I want you to give a warm welcome to our 5 for 15 national leader, president of SCIU, my sister, Mary Kay Henry.
I believe. Thank you so much. It is my deep honor and with incredible pride that I land here in New York City today on behalf of the 4 million fast food workers around the country and the 8 million retail workers, because Adriana and Pierre stand for the workers here in New York City, but most of all, their fearlessness and courage, combined with the leadership champion of the mayor of New York City, together with the city council members that are standing with us here today, you have made it possible for workers all across the United States to see a path to winning their power by having a voice in an organization, and that will make it possible for people to lead a decent life. Because here in New York, you understand that listening to Pierre's story is wrong. It's wrong for somebody to work full-time in this nation and have to choose between a Metro card and his phone bill and not be able, yeah, that's wrong. And the law that the mayor is signing today makes it crystal clear that New York City does respect working hard for a living, playing by the rules, and wanting a better life for ourselves and our children. And that's the essence. That is the essence of the Fight for 15 and a union movement, because we are not going to settle until every city in this nation wakes up, like New York City has done, and recognizes the power of people coming together and creating fairness in our economy and our democracy. And I am so honored to stand with the fearless and courageous working people that have made this possible. And our elected officials and champions that recognize the power of government being able to act in a way that creates fairness in an economy where the level of racial and economic inequality is at an all-time high. And New York City is saying, no, we can do right by everybody that lives in this community. And I bring the love and solidarity of the Fight for 15 movement. And New York City is going to raise the bar for every city in this country. And we are incredibly grateful for your leadership. Thank you very much.
Now, I got to tell you,
you never be defeated. The workers united will never be defeated. The workers united will never be defeated.
all right, thank you. You got strong voices, everyone. I want to say something. You know, it is a testament to the kind of leadership that Mary Kay Henry provides, that she was very modest about her role just then. She gave all the credit to you, and you deserve an immense amount of credit. But someone had to have the audacity to believe in the Fight for 15. And I can tell you, because I have heard many a time, Mary Kay, people, when this started especially, people dismissing it out of hand as an impossibility. I cannot tell you how many elected officials I heard along the way saying it would never see the light of day. But you believed in something that was needed. And I hope you appreciate there was one point along the line there in 2016 where it went from an idea that people were trying to dismiss to an idea that everyone had to talk about. That's right. And everyone had to address. And if you didn't address it, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because working people were watching. And that's because you had the audacity to fight for it. Thank you, Mary Kay. Now, here in our own city, there have been some very persistent voices on all of these issues that affect working people, paid sick leave and living wages and fair scheduling. And persistence is a virtue, my friends. It's not supposed to come easy. We have to fight for it, don't we? Well, a great fighter and a man who is persistence personified, the president of the RWDSU, Stuart Applebaum.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have to tell you that it's really a great privilege for me to be here with all of you today and to listen to what Mayor de Blasio has to say. Mr. Mayor, I believe you get it exactly right. At a time when what is happening in America should dismay us, New York City is shining a light on a different vision of who we are and what we can be. And New Yorkers should be very proud. And I'm honored to be here with Hector and Mary Kay, people who have accomplished what so many thought was impossible. And I think the message of their victories is this, that when we come together, when workers join together in solidarity, when workers come together collectively, we can make the impossible possible. Mr. Mayor, the law that you will be signing today will create some of the strongest protections for retail workers throughout this country. 1 in 9 New Yorkers is a retail worker, and they are among the lowest wage earners in our city. And they struggle to survive on often part-time work, barely making ends meet. In addition to all they face working in retail, they have been subjected to the unpredictability of on-call scheduling. A cruel, exploitative, computer-driven system designed to optimize employer profits while sacrificing any considerations at all for working women and men. On-call scheduling is a pervasive and exploitative employment practice where workers do not find out until just before a scheduled shift if they will be required to work or not. You need to put your life on hold and be available for work, regardless of whether you will be called in or paid. If you are a part-time worker, the uncertainty of your schedule means you can't arrange for a needed second job. If you are a parent, you don't know if you're going to need childcare. If you want to continue your schooling, you can't sign up for classes without knowing your availability. Today, we have showed that together we can end abusive scheduling practices. Intro 1387 among the package of wonderful bills being signed into law today by Mayor de Blasio and passed by an overwhelming margin by the New York City City Council will put an end to on-call scheduling in our city. Workers will now be able to gain control over their own lives and their ability to earn a living. They can plan childcare, plan their classes, help their elderly parents, and get that needed second job. The signing of this ban into law will help retail workers not just survive, but thrive in New York City, and the whole country should pay attention. Today we make history. Retail workers showed that united. Fast food workers showed that united. All workers in this city showed that united we can fight to ensure fair scheduling practices that allow for predictability and fairness in the workplace. The precedent set by this bill and by the mayor signing it into law today will not just help New Yorkers, but sets a model for ending on-call scheduling and unfair scheduling practices nationwide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you, including our incredible speaker, including the Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs and all the members of your department. Thank you to each and every one of you for your pervasive and tenacious work to end this abhorrent practice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Speaker Mark-Viverito, bill's sponsor, Corey Johnson, and the Council for this important accomplishment for retail workers. Thank you all. Onward.
Next time I need a chant, I'm hiring you. You're good. You're good. A strong voice and advocate for all working people in New York City, our public advocate, Tish James. You don't love this stuff, right? You got this thing here.
There is nothing more powerful than a people committed to changing an unjust system. I want to thank all of you who are here today. And I know that whenever you want to go to a street fight, you always need to have RWSDU, Stuart Applebon, and of course, Hector Figueroa and 32BJ at your side, because when they fight, they win. So last September, I stood with the mayor outside of McDonald's in my beloved Brooklyn, listening to several workers who lost their jobs because of unfair employment practices. And I learned about an unfair labor practice known as clopening. Workers forced to work the closing shift sometimes until 1 in the morning or later, and then be up early the next morning for the opening shift. Workers forced to drop everything in their lives at a moment's notice to cover a last-minute shift, as if they were robots, ignoring the fact that the vast majority of them were mothers and fathers and caretakers. And so a significant number of them were female single moms trying to balance childcare with work responsibilities. But today, because of the leaders of the City Council, because of the Speaker, because of all of the sponsors that have been mentioned, including myself, we have declared that the exploitation of fast food workers and other retail workers is no more. And lastly, because the power of the union. And the power of the union, this is just another strike towards progress. This reminds me, and it symbolizes the modern equivalent of the 40-hour work week. And so starting today, New York City has groundbreaking legal protections, providing workers the flexibility and freedom to effectively plan their lives outside of work, whether that means caring for children, juggling school and work, or simply planning for the week ahead. Again, I want to thank all of the sponsors here today, because it's really about treating workers with dignity and respect. And it's about making sure that our laws reflect our values, and that our city live up to its true best self for all New Yorkers. New York needed to step up for these workers, and we did. And today is a big victory for the working people in our city, who will now be able to take care of their families and who will now have the fair work conditions they have long deserved. But I cannot leave this podium without saying the following. We must not allow any forces in Albany to step in and to preempt the City Council. We cannot allow no forces in Albany. We will not allow any force in Albany to weaken the protections of working people in this city. And so we've got to say it loud, and we've got to say it clear. You've got to stand and step up and state your declaration and your commitment to working people in this city of New York. And if you do not, then this coalition and these unions and the working people of the city and the state will rise up and send a strong message to you today that it's all about working people in this city and state, and that you must never forget. That's right.
Well, I think they heard Tish James all the way in Albany. Before I bring up some of the council members who played a leading role in achieving this legislation, I want to thank some other members who are here with us and have been leaders in the fighting for the rights of working people as well. Councilmember and Chair of the Finance Committee, Jalissa Ferreras-Copeland, thank you. She was here. Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer, he was over there. I saw them with my own eyes. And Councilmember Helen Rosenthal. And now, a sponsor of the fast food scheduling bill, who's worked so hard to get us to this day, Councilmember Brad Lander.
So, almost 5 years ago, a small group of fast food workers in downtown Brooklyn had the courage to go out on strike. And thanks to the invitation, maybe the insistence of our friend John Kest, whose memory I want to call to presence in this rotunda at this moment, I had the good fortune of being there to watch their courage as they became the first fast food workers to go out on strike, to have the guts to demand some basic dignity in their workplace. And that power has sparked a national movement. We've gone out time and time and time again together. And not just when your courage to go out on strike called out courage in us. So when it came time last fall to get arrested together demanding a fair work week, we were there together, is that right? And not just courage for fast food workers. So when it was time, when car wash workers were organizing, and it was time for us to get arrested together, we did that as well. Cellmates here. And thanks to that movement, as you heard from Hector, 22 million workers across the country have seen an increase in the minimum wage, and 10 million of them are on a path to $15 an hour. And what we've built is a partnership between the courage of worker organizing and the creativity of government so that we keep it moving forward. Another thing that the mayor and the council have done together in that time is create our new Office of Labor Policy and Standards at the Department of Consumer Affairs. And we'll hear from them, but a couple of weeks ago we heard 50 workers, freelancers and fast food workers and construction workers and car wash workers and retail workers, knowing that now in New York City, when you have the courage to stand up and organize, your government's going to have the ability to step in and support you, and we are going to carry it forward. Because $15 is great, but if you can't get enough hours, what good is it? And if you don't know your schedule, what good is it? So I'm so proud to be the sponsor of Intro 1396A, which guarantees fast food workers 2 weeks advance notice of their schedules and requires some predictability pay if those schedules are changed, and Intro 1395, which makes sure those workers who want a path to more hours, a path to full-time hours, they can get them if they want. And let's be clear, and this is what the public advocate said, let's make sure if anything comes from Albany that guarantees workers less than 2 weeks advance notice of their schedule in fast food or doesn't ensure a path to full-time work for those workers, then it is going backwards and not forwards. Forward is the direction we are going together. We've got a lot more work to do. There's new ideas coming from the Office of Labor Policies and Standards, new ideas coming from the New York City Council, and we are going to keep pushing all across the country. I'm proud to be the chair of a national network of progressive local elected officials called Local Progress. San Francisco did this, Seattle did this, New York City's doing it biggest and best today, but we're not done. This legislation has been introduced by our colleagues in Philadelphia and in Washington, D.C., and in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you know, thanks to what those workers did 5 years ago in downtown Brooklyn, to the courage of all these folks here, a movement is sweeping across the country. Thank you very much.
And now the chair of the Committee on Civil Service and Labor, Councilmember Danique Miller.
Wow. Look at all these faces that we've been in this battle for so long together, right? So I will say that I've spent the greater part of the last 3 decades advocating on behalf of working families and within organized labor. And in doing so, I've been on the side of some really progressive, groundbreaking precedents in serving working families, having negotiated the first municipal labor contract that included child care. And nearly 15 years later, what happens amongst working people and amongst organized labor here in the city of New York never ceases to amaze me. Right? This is amazing. This is groundbreaking. This is precedent setting. This is the template for the entire country, not just the state of New York. And anything else just doesn't count.
That's right.
And so we have to continue to fight this fight. We have to take this victory. We have to learn from this victory. But more importantly, this coalition of folks that came, listen, this was happening for weeks, and it was going on, and it got intense, and every union in the city thought that this was great. How do we protect? How do we move forward? How do we utilize this to protect workers for years to come? And because of all those resources, because of leadership, it is happening. We're standing here today, and workers throughout the country are going to benefit from this. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of it, to just be a small partner in this movement. And I would be remiss if I did not add what is going on in Albany has to reflect this. But more importantly, if I did not add that we have 1,800 workers that have been out on strike for 11 weeks that are upstairs now with a corporation where we talk about putting corporate greed above workers, where the CEO earned $99 million last year, and the first contract negotiation that they were engaged in here in the city of New York, they are attempting to take away benefits and pensions from workers. Workers that are one step above these workers that we see here today. So we have to take this movement and say that when workers stand together, we win.
That's right.
Now we go upstairs and we win. Thank you.
And now the sponsor of the bills protecting retail workers, Councilmember Corey Johnson.
Today reminds me that elections have consequences. Because 4 years ago, we were talking during many of our campaigns about paid sick leave.
Yep.
We were talking about a better living wage law. We were talking, or some people were talking, about universal pre-K. We were talking about paid family leave. And as has been said today, people were talking about raising the minimum wage. Some legislation that we pass in this council works in the abstract, involving broad and overarching policy issues. Sometimes it takes years for a new policy's effects to be seen. This legislation today is not that type of legislation. This package of legislation will have a direct and immediate positive effect on the lives of tens of thousands of New Yorkers, replacing uncertainty and instability with economic security and empowerment. Everything that has been said here today, whether it be the 40-hour work week, whether it be worker protections that came after the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, whether it be fighting for a living wage and paid sick leave, all of these things that were done by people, done by movements, done by folks who have got into the streets and said, enough is enough. Now, as an elected official, I'm glad at the great things we've done, and we should be very proud of the mayor and his administration for leading the way. But I would say that whether it be the African American civil rights movement, or the workers' rights movement, or the anti-war movement, or the LGBT civil rights movement, or the women's suffrage movement, or the Fight for 15, these were not movements that were led by politicians.
That's right.
These were movements that were led by people and by movements. My bills ban on-call scheduling, as was talked about by my dear friend Stuart Applebaum, the president of the RWDSU, and also bans the practice of clopenings, which says that if you're closing a restaurant or a store at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, they cannot ask you to come in at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning to open the store. These are really good things. I did not think I would invoke the president at this rally today, but I would say that he is right in one regard, though not in the way that we would think.
What?
The system is rigged, and the system is rigged against working people.
Amen.
The cost of rent has gone up in New York City. The cost of food has gone up in New York City. The cost of getting on the subway has gone up in New York City. The cost of buying clothes has gone up in New York City. The cost of everything has gone up. And it is time for us to stand on the side of working women and men. They deserve a fair chance. They deserve a shot. They deserve to have these basic protections that many of us take for granted. They deserve those things. They're what keep New York City ticking and running and moving. They are the economic engine. And all the fights in the past, all the people that came before us, all the movements that led us to today were movements that were not easy. But when we look back, we admire those movements and what they accomplished. That is what today is about. That is what these bills are about, and I am very proud to stand with all of you in fighting for a more just New York City. I just want to end with this. I want to thank some folks that were involved. They deserve it, as was said by Councilmember Miller. This was a lot of work for weeks on end. Councilmember Joseph Copeland was a partner in this package. Brad Lander was the real champion. He pushed this and pushed this and pushed this and pushed this. He was the guy that really, really pushed it. I want to thank the Speaker for her leadership, my friend Carlos Menchaca, who has been in the fight all the way. I want to thank Hector Figueroa and Allison Hirsch, David Cohen and Candace Tolliver. I want to thank my dear friend Stuart Applebaum and Camille Rivera and Jessica Garcia from the RWDSU. And I really, really want to thank, the workers, and I want to thank the mayor. It is really nice to have a mayor that when you have a good, progressive, thoughtful idea, he gets it. He just gets it. Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. We're seeing that in Washington. We're seeing what's happened, and we saw what the elections in 2013 ushered in. We need to keep this progressive vision of New York City moving forward, going into next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And last but not least, the chair of the Committee on Consumer Affairs, Rafael Espinal. He left. Well, then he was last. Okay. Everybody, listen, congratulations. It's a day everyone here should be very, very proud of. You did it. Congratulations.